WarsawJS.
Let's get to the topic. The first step, we'll describe an application that will be our base for structure modification and so on. So the requirement, the app that will be presented will show job offers from imagine that we have an application for listing job offers in many different cities. The job offers can be grouped into categories and subcategories. When you don't select any category on a city level page, there will be highlighting, the job offers will be highlighted. And the app is available in different languages. And actually, for now, it is Polish and English, and more to be added in the future. So this is the requirements. So when it comes to the technical requirements, our app will be using server-side rendering. So we'll use Next.js, which is a framework for Vue for server-side rendering, or Next.js, whatever, like any framework that's using server-side rendering. For now, our language information are stored in cookies. Page is accessible on two domains, example.com and the www.example.com. And a bit of a technical information, our IDs in the system are like the integers for category and subcategory, job offer is UUID, and city code is always three uppercase letters. So this is the application that we'll be working on, and we'll be analyzing we'll be analyzing the URL structure here. So let's start with the page. You'll see you're able to pick the city. When you pick the city, you will go to the city page, which will show you featured offers. You can select category. In here, you can, on the left side, you can see the example of the URL and the path. How is it defined currently? When you go to the category page, when you select the category, you go to the category page. Then you see the offers from this category. When you select the subcategory, then the offers are filtered, narrowed down. So this is how it looks like basically. And when you select an offer by clicking on the details button in the offer, you will see some description of the offer, the job title, company, tags. You can apply for the job. When you click apply on the job, some pop-up will appear. You can attach CV and send an offer. You can apply, and that's basically it. So this is as simple as that. So we always land on the job offer page, and that's it. We can go to job offer from city, category, and subcategory page. So this is our application. Let's see if there are some problems maybe with the URL structure here. So the first question is, take a look at those two URLs. And one of those is in Polish and one of those is in English. Imagine that you have those pages opened on the different devices. Can you tell which one is in English and which one is in Polish? Well, you can simply guess. You can check right now if you guess correctly. That's basically, this is the first problem. We are missing the language in the URL. And why is it a problem? So when Google indexes your page, it tries to find the best match for the searcher. So for the person that searches for content. So if it can read the person's language from the browser settings, from the Google settings, and it will try to give the searcher page in his or her language. So this is important to indicate that, hey, this page is available in your language. You can do it in many different ways. So you can use a path segment. So you can indicate language in the path. You can use the top level domain, or you can use subdomain. It's depending on your technical and system limitations. You can choose the best option that fits you. But it is recommended. Google actually recommends to show the language in the URL and not store the information in cookie. The other thing is like in many apps that I was working on, I saw that kind of URLs, like they are not too human readable, right? And what's the problem with this? Based on the context of the page, you can figure out where this URL will lead you, right? So it can be a job offer page because we know that this application is focused around searching for job offers. So this is we can guess it that this particular URL leads to the job offer page. Maybe in Warsaw because we have a city keyword and the WAR code. So this might stand for Warsaw, right? But we won't figure out from this ID what is the position. And actually, this is a job offer page, but not in Warsaw, but in Warsaw, and for a backender position. And if you are a frontender, then you might not be interested in this, in clicking on this link, right? So the thing is that this URL is too technical, and we can't be sure what we find on the page. Remember that the words are always better than codes. This way, you include when you use full words instead of some random identifiers in the URL, you are actually adding keywords to your URL. So it makes your URL more descriptive, which Google's benefits. So this is important to have. And actually, when it comes to the J, like we have one keyword already here, but this is a J letter, and this is not descriptive enough. It's basically not a keyword, so we cannot be sure what it stands for. So the Google also wants benefit that kind of keywords. And yeah, we also have too complex URL structure. And what does it mean? So we have excessive keywords here. Imagine that we have excessive keywords. So those keywords extend the length of the URL. Like they are adding some paths, some segments to the URLs to the URL. So we have before the actual page, before this this 45223, we have like 5 path segments, folders, let's call them. So why is it bad? This is bad because it weakens our SEO value of this page. So the pages that are closer to the home will gain more SEO equity. Google will mark them as more important because they are the pages that have more path segments more path segments before the actual page might be marked as non-relevant. So whenever possible, try to shorten the URLs by trimming unnecessary parameters. And yeah, that's basically it. Remember also not to add too many keywords there because it's not a good practice. It's not the best practice in terms of SEO. It might not hurt you, but for sure it won't benefit. So yeah, this is important thing to remember. The other thing is that we have here untranslated keywords. As I mentioned before at the beginning, our page is available in 2 languages and more to be added in the future. So in here, we have imagine that we want to preserve those parameters here, right? So the city, category, and category. And so for the English-speaking user, it's okay, it's understandable. For the Polish person, it might not be understandable because he or she might not know English and she might not know what those keywords mean. Imagine that we have actually the language in the URL, right? So, in English it looks okay because we have EN, city, category, and so on. But the Polish versions, as I mentioned, might not be understandable. Imagine the reverse situation. We have keywords in Polish only, and that's it. So in Polish, the URL looks good, but in English, for the English-speaking person, it might be suspicious because he or she might not know what miasto is because it's not easily translatable word. So you can't figure out what miasto might mean, basically. So the translated URLs, first of all, enhance user experience. Also, as I mentioned before, Google tries to match the URLs, like tries to show the page the most relevant pages in the results. So first of all, it will highlight the URLs, the pages that are in the searcher's language. So, so this is important, and actually Google encourages to use the translated URLs in your web app whenever possible. And the other problem is that we are serving this this app from those two addresses, and in the eyes of Google, they are completely different addresses. So it is not a good way to serve the content, because it might cause you a duplicate content issues. So Google might flag your pages that they are serving the duplicate content, and you might not be sure which page will be actually indexed and which not. And it actually weakens the SEO value of your page. So it doesn't matter which one will you pick, just pick one and redirect from one to another. Of course, the duplicate content issues might be also handled by setting the proper indexation tags, no index tags, like robots tags, canonical tags, and so on. But yeah, also this is also worth to remember, that this is important and worth doing. So let's see if we can solve those problems somehow. So this is we'll be basing our solution on this structure. So this is the first part. So I have examples in Vue and in React, so no, I will be changing them. So as I mentioned before, we have we are using some framework for server-side rendering, and actually we in Next.js, which is framework for Vue, there is this mechanism called file system routing, which basically transforms in Next.js. There is a similar feature. It transforms the file structure to the route, but this is not a good way in terms when you're doing when you're improving your URLs for SEO. It's better to define router manually. In Next, there is a way to do it, and yeah, I'll be showing you already the Vue router structure. So the declarative approach from the very beginning. So yeah, this is how our definitions look like. In React, it will look like this. So let's start with the first thing. Let's define the language parameters. So we would like to add to every route the language here at the very beginning. So this should be as simple as adding the language to every path at the beginning, right? But there is one thing to be done here, because when we add language to the city selection, we will lose our home page. And yeah, this is also good to add some home page to handle the root of your page, so the user won't see the blank screen. He or she can see some, I don't know, nice page. For example, like in this example, this is an example from the Vue Next.js framework. Right now, we are adding here a simple middleware that will that will detect user's language and redirect to the city selection screen. The perfect, in a perfect scenario, it would be great to add here some fancy landing page which explains what the app is about, how to use it, and it will detect the user's language and so on. So yeah, this is something that will be the best, but for now it will be enough for us. So right now our structure looks like this. Let's use slugs instead of codes. So basically, what are slacks? I will explain in a sec. Right now, let's change all the codes, IDs to slacks, so it will indicate that those params are in fact not identifiers anymore, but slacks. So the slacks are basically a word in the URL that describes what you can find on the page. And the slacks should be translated. And the best, the Google recommends slacks to be lowercase. The words should be separated with a hyphen. So the slacks should be also descriptive and short, brief, and descriptive to explain what actually is on the page. So instead of the city code, the WAW, we'll have the full city name, the translated city name, Warsaw. The same goes for the category. Instead of ID, we'll see the full category name. The same goes for subcategory and the job offer. When it comes to job offer, we'll see the company name and the position name. And yeah, this is as I mentioned, we are just in the routing. We are just replacing the code with slacks. The same goes here. And remember about a few things. We are in this example. We are assuming that we are ready for this change. We can fetch entities like cities, like job offers, and so on by slacks. We are ready for this. But remember, you need to identify technical limitations of your system. It's not. Sometimes it might not be simply possible to add the slacks instead of codes because, well, your system does not support this, and you will need to create some like huge time-consuming overrides and fixes, and yeah, this might not be worth it. So remember, it's fine to have slacks and IDs together. You can separate them with hyphen, with some other separator, but yeah, it's good to have slacks in like any form. In our example, as I mentioned, we are assuming that this is fine and we are ready for this. So yeah, this is the current state. So let's go further and remove the excessive keywords. So we would like to get rid of city, category, and subcategory keywords. We'll leave the J keyword for now as is. So let's remove those. And yeah, this is how it looks like. But as I mentioned before, we would like to have our keywords, we would like to have SEO-friendly keywords. So we would like to have this keyword, the J keyword, to say offer. But as I mentioned, the keywords should be translated, right? So let's make this this keyword a dynamic parameter in our routing structure. So this should be as simple as that, right? So remove the J and add the dynamic parameter here. But let's take a look at the current structure, and there is a problem here. So those two URLs are basically the same. When it comes to the routers, it doesn't matter if it's a Vue router or React router. They are working in a way that, in case of those conflicting URLs, only the first one will be matched. So whenever, even if you type the job offer URL, the subcategory URL will be matched. The subcategory route will be matched because it will be higher in the definition structure, or other way around. So depending on which one has the priority, so is defined earlier, this one will be matched. And this is causing us a problem because we need to differentiate those URLs somehow. So to do this, we can use advanced matching patterns, which is supported in Vue router and React router, but only in version 5, because I know in version 6 it is not supported anymore. So yeah, so for now, let's assume we're using React router version 5 or Vue router, and yeah, and we can define the regex in the parentheses after the keyword. So basically, this will limit us this will help us to avoid conflicts for those two routes, right? So whenever the Vue router will see that at this place in the URL path is the offer or oferta, it will match this route instead of the subcategory route. And this is something that we want. The same thing, as I mentioned, we can do with in React Router, but only version 5. And the syntax is basically the same because both are using the same library beneath. So in Next.js, there is also some extension, like there is also a validate function in the component that you can validate your route before actually rendering the route. So in case this condition won't be matched, the page will return 404, which is the valid keyword, which is the valid status code, because with this page, so our Polish keyword oferta shouldn't occur in URL if we have English language in the URL, and the vice versa. So this is the small validation function that will help us to keep the URL structure safe. So actually, this feature can save you a lot of trouble if you know the languages that you have in your system, or if you know how those parameters will be structured, then yeah, you can assign those regexes to every parameter there is. And yeah, this is as simple, as updating the routing structure. So this is the last point, the last problem. And so, as I mentioned before, pick one domain, www or bare domain. Pick one, redirect, use 301 redirect to indicate that this resource has been moved permanently, and that's it. Yeah, in Nux you can use the server middleware, which is basically Express middleware that will be executed and checked and will redirect. If you are migrating the current project to the new routes, you should maintain the redirection from old routes to new routes and indicate and use 301 redirect to indicate that those have been moved permanently, and avoid chaining redirects. You should redirect your user in one go. Ideally, if this is not possible, try to keep it below 3. So this is an example how you can do it. So you can add the routes at the top, so they'll have bigger priority. You can use the advanced matching pattern to avoid conflict, and yeah, create some solution that will calculate the new route based on the old route. So to sum up, this is the new URL structure. As you can see, it's much more descriptive. You can actually read what is on the page from the URL itself. And yeah, this is a small summary. So proper URL structure matters for the SEO. It's not the only factor, but it is one of the many. Remember to keep URLs simple, descriptive, human, readable, localized, have your domain properly set. Remember about the redirection codes, and if you're interested in the subject, you can visit the developersgoogle.com/search to learn more, because I barely touched the surface of the topic. This is much bigger topic. So, and yeah, as Mateusz mentioned, we have the Glovo has the promo code for you, WarsawJS 25. Yeah, 20 zloty for the order. For the minimum order value of 35 till Sunday. Yeah, and yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Łukasz. Who have questions? Okay, so we got time. We have the special mic.
Okay, I'm here for the first time, and I don't know why we speak English, but it's okay. You have mentioned many times URL, and also with the URL, I know that there is a hackers attack on the Glovo page, and there was your customers were misleaded that it was the dash Glovo. And if somebody enters this URL, the malicious code was installed on the mobile, and this steals the credential to the banks, for example. So, do you think about how to protect your customers from such events? So this is in your programming, or maybe this is a question to other members of your team. I could imagine that probably Glovo should buy some URLs for different with different characters or different hyphens or underscores, etc., to avoid such situations. Thank you.
Yeah. So when it comes to this, I'm not sure. Yeah, there might have been one situation, but yeah, that was already patched. I know that when it comes to the web app was not so popular some time ago. So there was not much pressure to like find vulnerabilities on the web app and fix them. But currently, this is like a priority, and that we have a security team actually actively monitoring our repositories and all the apps. And yeah, this shouldn't happen right now. So yeah, this is. But yeah, this is something that we've been working on for, and yeah, this is basically it.
I have a question.
Yeah.
You had two keywords, oferta and offer.
Yeah.
What would be your approach if you would have more translations? And sub question, even the harder case, if keywords could be defined by your user.
So yeah, this is a good question.
Would you be building regex in the runtime?
So there is it actually depends on the state of your system. For example, we have currently in Glovo we have for example our URLs looks like like the pl/pl/warszawa/restauracja, right? And we have underscore, we have an identifier after the slash, as I mentioned before. So, and this is actually coming from the backend. So those translations are set in admin panel by the users and so on. So it's difficult to answer the question, how would I approach it? Because this might not be a good answer for this particular case. But in some cases, you have to, you can do it on the fly. You can add some checks when I showed, for example, I showed you the validate function provided by Next. You can utilize this. You can validate it using some kind of middlewares, some router hooks, and so on. So you can fetch the data before. For example, of course, this might be heavy operation and it might slow down the load of your web app, which is not also the best way because it will also hurt your SEO performance, like Lighthouse and so on. So you need to find the proper balance. So yeah, you can fetch it, check it with the backend. Those translations you can, for example, we like in our system we have mixed approach. Some keywords are built during they are built during runtime. Some are validated when you open the page. Some keywords can be simply defined, and during build the regex is built. And this is like for the keywords that do not change very often. So that might be the approach. As I mentioned, that depends on the architecture of your system and the technical capabilities, and yeah.
Could you share with us what Glovo is using for translation? Just a quick question, thank you.
We are using Localize.
Okay, we have time for one last question.
So the question is, for the SEO purposes, should I replace slashes with hyphens using the dynamic matching?
Yes, you can.
But should I?
Should I? Well, it depends. It depends on your. I know that everything depends on your on your requirements, but actually, the slashes indicate, like, when you're thinking about SEO, try to think about your page as a static page with folders and the document at the very end. So it should be logically grouped. So the slashes should logically group your content so into directories, let's say. So for example, if you have, for example, as on global we have restaurants. So when you can have restaurant slash. So this is a group of restaurants. So everything that is after those restaurants will indicate that, hey, this belongs to the restaurants category. And you should, you should have some separations with slashes, but you can use, hyphens to, maybe you shouldn't separate stuff with hyphens, use slashes, but the hyphens should be used for separation of like IDs for the same entity or some. So yeah.
Okay.